Good Saturday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with this live update, a special one on both Tropical Storm Marco and Tropical Storm Laura. So, again, we're going to watch this situation carefully here as we have a lot going on. Here's the infrared satellite imagery at this hour. You can see our system here near Puerto Rico. That is Laura there, Laura, as we continue to watch this situation carefully. And as we get off the Keys there and further off toward the west a little bit more, actually, you do see your other system, and that there is Marco. So we're going to be carefully tracking these because there's now a hurricane watch. The track has dramatically shifted there toward areas in toward Louisiana for Marco, and we'll dive into that here in just a moment. But real quick, we'll get in a little closer on our system. I know it's kind of cluttered because we have two tracks here that are close together, but right here, again, this is Marco that we're going to be watching. This will be Laura's track eventually, but we already have some activity not that far away from Key West even. That's not really too significant right now, but they're going to be watching that. No alerts for them for that system, but it's a tropical storm watch for Laura. So it's a complicated setup overall. Quickly, we'll switch you over to the area around Puerto Rico where there's a lot of flash flood warnings in play. You see all this moisture, all this thunderstorm activity. That's system here really getting wound up, it seems like, out that way. We have to watch because that one might ultimately have more potential here, more potential for problems down the line. So we'll be keeping an eye on that situation down there near Puerto Rico to see how things evolve, how this might get disrupted over Hispaniola. That'll be a key indicator there to see exactly what happens. I know just looking at some things right now, it looks like the hurricane hunters are back out there again gathering valuable information on what could be upgraded pretty soon to Hurricane Marco, depending on what the hurricane hunters do find out there. You see this little light blue dot, that is the hurricane hunters out here pointing out for you. They're getting into this storm again to get that important information. So we'll be watching this situation now. If you're watching from North Florida, South Georgia, I know we have some showered and thunderstorms around, and we have even had some tornado warnings, but this is not really related to the systems down here. That's the good news. It's just the overall pattern. It's not connected way too far away here to get anything like that, especially if the system's a little more organized. I know we had a crystal ball earlier this year, a really disorganized system bring us a threat around here, but with a scenario like this, it's one where you don't have to pay attention as much here, at least in the short term, for any impacts toward our area directly from our tropical cyclones. And we have to watch for the Tallahassee region as we do look ahead because there are some indications there could be some peripheral effects there as we get toward the Florida Big Bend, maybe skirting some of those southwestern most counties there in the Florida Big Bend. We'll just have to watch because there's a lot of uncertainty still. Marco now predicted to go further east in Laura, which is a big shift based on what we've been talking about here. There's a lot of uncertainty. The model's having difficulty as there's not as much data there with the coronavirus around. There's not as much upper air data because not as many planes flying out there, unfortunately. So it's making things tougher, and two systems already hard to forecast when you're kind of having to see how one influences the other here in the overall setup. So we're watching that. We're watching the local weather here with some storms, some flood alerts in play. I know there's a flood warning down toward Marion County and concern there in toward Alachua County as well, as rainfall rates in excess of 2 inches per hour are overspreading parts of Alachua County. Again, we're not talking about this being related to the tropical system, but just a quick weather update for those of you tuning in here from north central Florida. We're going to be tracking some of this down toward Gainesville here as you see some of this heavier rain moving into downtown. And these numbers are going to add up here. Could have some urban flood, and we'll have to watch. Not that much antecedent rainfall, but that's another thing we'll need to watch as we look out toward other areas. Luckily, I haven't seen too much antecedent rainfall yet, but with two systems maybe heading over toward Louisiana, we'll just have to keep our eyes on this scenario. We'll have to watch to see how energy values and SEER values are, because we had a little bit elevated SEER and energy values today around here, combining that cause those storms to rotate. The SEER was not really supposed to have an impact there in terms of maybe tornadic activity not rising to that level, but we did end up seeing that with some areas of rotation and maybe a tornado touching down in the Hildreth area, some damage according to broadcast media there, some minor issues. So we'll have to check that out to see if that was maybe just wind damage. It easily could have been. I haven't dove too much into that, but we'll kind of get more information there to see what happens as we look at that scenario scenario. But again, back to our system here. This is where our tropical storm and turning into a Hurricane Marco is supposed to be at 2 o'clock on your Monday. I know days kind of mixing together here where we're kind of switching between different storm systems, but this is near Venice, Louisiana, near New Orleans as well, and that's why there's a hurricane watch in play, because we're carefully tracking this scenario here as we get toward areas on the bayou, as we see even a tropical storm maybe further up. But this system doesn't have as much potential here. It doesn't have as much potential here to maybe strengthen into a really strong hurricane, I don't think, compared to Laura, though it did really strengthen today when the hurricane hunters got out there. And we still have to watch, and there's still a hurricane watch, could be upgraded to a hurricane warning, storm surge watch in play as well. It doesn't seem like this system would have as much of an opportunity as Laura would have, if especially this one got out of the way here and cleared the path for Laura, which is a bigger system now. That also means it can't change strength as quick as Marco, so that's something you have to keep in mind with Marco. It could be a little bit surprising on how the strength does evolve with it here, because it can really strengthen quick or really weaken quick, which some of the models are showing that as we get closer to the coast. Again, this is where Marco is supposed to hit Tuesday, right now anyway, around 2 o'clock Eastern, that's 1 o'clock Central. And then as we get further off toward the west, this is where Laura is supposed to hit, also as a Category 1 hurricane. As we get here, I'll kind of point that out just a little bit better. You see what I'm talking about there, about Wednesday at 1 o'clock Central Time. So if this were to happen, we'd have a flooding concern, I'm sure, as we look ahead toward that situation, just because of a lot of rainfall, antecedent rainfall from that first system. You're adding on to the second one, and then you have to have that storm surge threat. It's a complicated scenario for sure. Fujiwara effect may not really come into play. I know that's been talked about a lot. If these systems are far enough apart here, and even if it does, it could actually help to weaken both of these systems. That's a possibility here as well. So we'll watch. Again, if you're watching from North Central Florida, Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia, not really too concerned. If you're watching from the Florida Big Bend, and especially there as we get toward Franklin and Wakulla, and then some of these other areas like Liberty, then we start to watch a little more for you. Thread a little bit less toward Tallahassee, and then in toward southwest Georgia, south central. But we'll be paying attention here as we look ahead, just to make sure things don't change, because if you were looking at the track even from this morning from Marco, which is now supposed to make landfall in the New Orleans area, it was supposed to make landfall way out into Texas, and that's a dramatic shift. As we go here, I'll kind of do a measurement. We're talking about 300-mile shift in one forecast, give or take, for landfall position on a shorter term situation, and it shows you the volatility here in the overall situation with the storm system and with the forecasting, because it's just so uncertain. So we're watching everything for you here. We're again watching down toward Puerto Rico, where there's some flash flood warnings in play right now. So let's go ahead and say what our other system shows us there. You see some of this moisture, and they're getting a lot of issues down toward Puerto Rico with this flooding, an area that doesn't need it for sure, with everything they've gone through the last few years. Life-threatening flash flooding being indicated here. So you see this in the parts of southeastern areas there on the island. So you just have to be really cognizant of what is happening. You just have to really be paying attention there as we are looking toward the U.S. territory. So again, just a nasty scenario into Puerto Rico, not a direct hit by a significant type storm, but still an impact there as we continue to watch just different things as we look around the region right now. I do want to pop up our RadarScope computer again, just to kind of reemphasize some things before we get over to the graphics just locally, because if you're tuning in, you're probably wondering what's happening down toward Gainesville and Archer and Bronson, and we have quite a bit of rain on the board right now, so we just need to be keeping our eyes on this. You do see even some lighting in the picture as well. We're going to be watching this very carefully here, just to see if we get some flood concerns that increase. We've already had some flood alerts issued, as we've been alluding to. We're going to be watching to see if anything's been back up. The instability should go down as we move ahead here, but we'll just have to watch when you have the instability and shear overlapping. The shear value is a little bit higher than you would really expect here this time of year. That can happen, though we weren't really anticipating the storms to really rotate per se, maybe some severe thunderstorms, but we ended up getting into more of a tornadic type scenario there, with some areas of rotation showing up. You saw little areas there, but nothing too concerning at the moment. We're just going to watch to see how this rain does come in, though, because it doesn't need to be from a tropical system to have an impact on your neighborhood. And we'll even watch as we get up toward Bradford County a little bit later on. Some heavier rain may come into the picture. Union as well. As you kind of see this coming in from the south here, there should be enough energy to let this activity last, I would suspect. So we're going to kind of loop this around now so you kind of see what I'm talking about. You'll be able to kind of get a better perspective on what is happening here. As you can see, this is kind of coming on up here, so I just have to be watching to see how much rain could end up falling here. Again, we'll be continuing to watch, just trying to give you a little bit of a loop there on what is happening. So I know it might be cutting out a little bit, but we'll go ahead and stop that loop for now as we continue to track the situation here, the situation in the tropics as well. I'll go ahead and come back on the camera. Again, we're looking at Puerto Rico. There's just a lot happening. We're watching hurricane hunters. They're starting to get out there. Don't see too much there. If there's anything I find out on this before we go off that's imminent to tell you about, of course, I'll let you know. And as we look toward Puerto Rico, we're still seeing some issues with some reports there. Some power issues, unfortunately. So this, of course, being an impact there of our tropical system. Again, we're looking at Laura right now, Puerto Rico, Marco, the hurricane watch in play. And as you look here toward our tropical climatology, this time of year, this is what you would expect here. And we're getting to the really busy part of the year, an active season already forecasted, maybe one of the most active we'll ever see here in the tropics, at least in this generation, just based on the numbers here that are being indicated. But doesn't mean you're going to have impacts in your area. Doesn't mean that you're going to have a catastrophic storm, though. Major hurricanes are still forecasted, and we could still, with Laura, I would think, has a better chance of becoming a major hurricane than Marco, just because of the way the scenario is, with Laura having more time over the warmer waters, though, and a more favorable atmospheric environment as well. It's bigger too, and Marco, it's lower pressure. It can change strength quickly, but a lot of the models, which haven't been accurate very much so far in some regards with that system, especially, we have to just watch because they have it weakening as it gets closer to the coast. But the hurricane center erring on the side of caution because there's so much unpredictability here, and they're calling this as a hurricane moving into New Orleans area on Monday. Very quick turnaround, less than 48 hours. So expect this to be upgraded to a hurricane warning if the trends continue later tonight, early tomorrow morning, probably. As we look, you see 1 p.m. on your Monday, that's Central Time. So we could be talking even 11 o'clock tonight with the wind field. They might want to go and upgrade that to a hurricane warning as we get in toward parts of Louisiana there, with a hurricane possibly making landfall, a Category 1 storm, about 85-mile-an-hour winds, give or take, with both scenarios here. The hurricane watch from the intercoastal city area of Louisiana to the Mississippi-Alabama border. A tropical storm watch extends all the way to the Florida border here as well. And we'll just have to see how this storm's structured overall here. The pressure 992 millibars, so it definitely did strengthen here as we've alluded to today. And these are important times here just to kind of give you a heads up, as by 8 a.m. Monday, tropical winds could be arriving there in the ward parts of Louisiana, Mississippi. And we'll just have to, again, that's the time you want to be prepared by. And if we have that other storm behind us, really, you almost have to prepare for 2 storms right now, which is something that I can't hardly think of really happening here, back-to-back storms like this. So it makes things a little more pertinent that you go ahead and prepare, maybe, even if there's a chance that this one doesn't really verify as much as the other one does, or if the other one kind of moves in a different area than we're expecting, as we have a little more uncertainty and a time scale being a little bit longer there, with the impacts being a little bit further away. But just go ahead and prepare here. Make sure you're ready about 8 a.m. Monday at Central Time, getting into toward the New Orleans area. So really, even Sunday night, just finish it up. You have the weekend, you have tomorrow, and just finish it up there. As we look toward the Big Bend, you see the Big Bend in here, and that's just the err on the side of caution. Just, you can be watching here for maybe isolated tornadoes as we get maybe toward Franklin, Wakulla. That might be pushing it a little bit, but we'll just have to watch here to see how things evolve, because there is so much uncertainty and we're not that far away here. And then the storm surge threat is also one we're paying attention to. A storm surge watch from Sabine Pass there to the Alabama-Florida border. And I'm kind of in the way here on some of this. I'm going to kind of step out real quick. I'll step out of the shot and we'll kind of see some of this here. As we do look at the storm surge forecast, you do see Mobile Bay there, 3 to 5 feet. Looking there as well in areas from Grand Isle, even over toward the Alabama-Florida border, we're watching quite a bit of storm surge there that could be occurring. This isn't something that's unheard of, but we have to watch, and we could have more storm surge to the other system as well. That's something to be mindful of here too. As I go ahead and step back in now, we'll go ahead and kind of look at some more things because the other system could actually have more of a storm surge threat here as it does evolve. We'll just have to pay attention to that, and because if that system's bigger and stronger, and we're talking about Laura there, something that you'll have to pay attention to. Already in the Keys, we have a tropical storm watch there. As this system is moving near the Keys as we get into Monday, so could be watching two systems impacting the U.S. in some form or fashion on Monday. Now, we're not really expecting an impact as we get further up into the state, and that's the good news. But we'll just kind of continue to track things here and make sure we give you the latest information as the time does allow here, as we continue to give you and get those informational details in. So again, you see the hurricane. This is 2 o'clock on Wednesday Central Time. We're talking about maybe 85 mile an hour maximum sustained winds. It's at 50 right now. Could strengthen a little more. Maybe it doesn't evolve as much. You never know. But I would think this would be the one we still have to pay attention to a little bit more in some regard because it's bigger, has a chance there to be a little bit stronger based on some model indications that I've seen. Movement right now west at 18, but we're going to see more of a northerly component here. At pressure 1,004 millibars. And that kind of says it's not as strong as the other system right now, but it's bigger, meaning that pressure there, the overall strength of this storm could get a little bit lower overall here. As you look at the Saffir-Simpson scale, I know storms can kind of be different in terms of their impacts. As we see here, some Category 1 storms can have bigger impacts. I know ECES because of where it hit, not got so much power. We're talking about some impacts there with Category 1 storms on the Saffir-Simpson scale in general, and you just have to be prepared. If we have 2 of them, that would cause a lot of issues if they hit the same spot. Can't guarantee that's going to happen, though. There's still a lot of uncertainty, but we're going through these names quickly here. Laura, Marco, in this hurricane season, and we're going to be watching for more storms under that system off of Africa. We're watching the chances of really falling there on that, so that's good news. In the short term, we'll have to watch because the season's going to continue to be an active one, it looks like, as we look ahead into September as well. Don't have a lot of details on that right at the moment, but we're going to continue to watch, continue to give you the latest updates on how things are evolving here with the overall tropical weather pattern. We're here in the Weather Center to keep you, your friends, and your family safe. Again, no direct impact here, more than likely toward Jacksonville, Gainesville, Stark, even Valdosta, for instance, Waycross, Brunswick. We're not really seeing that, but as we get out toward Tallahassee, still not really seeing that either, but could have some fringe impacts as we get further west there along Interstate 10 and south of Interstate 10 as well. And just want to be prepared for that. As I go ahead and look here at some information behind the scenes, we're still watching that storminess down toward Gainesville. Nothing severe right now, but I'm keeping a closer eye on this storminess than I normally would because we had those tornado warnings in play earlier. And you see the heavy rain, blinding rain along Interstate 75 right now here as we're looking in toward the Gainesville area. So just use extra caution, not seeing too much wind energy, maybe about 30. The Weather Service saying here maybe about the same as a watch in this area. As a watch for that wind energy. We're going to compare and contrast some models here real quick before we wind it down and just show you a few of these that I have in the system right now in the computer. As we have so much going on here, I just want to make sure we kind of let you know what's happening. We'll start off with the Keys, in fact, just to kind of show you here how things are going to matriculate. I see the significant weather advisory there. Another one just issued in the ward of Alachua County. We're watching to see how those winds do translate to the surface, but nothing really severe right now. But let's get to the Keys. Of course, we'll be watching Puerto Rico, but it's starting to be something that I'll be moving past there here as we look ahead. You see the Keys, though. We see this wind field maybe for our system here, Laura, getting into Key West. You see then maybe a storm that's strengthening as we get past there. That's what some of the models are showing. And then it kind of gets cluttered here. But Laura is also going to be a Cat 1 in a pretty similar area as we look ahead. You see Marco's down to the south here. The time's off, so we're not seeing them meeting necessarily. And even if they were to be closer than we're expecting in the place, it'd be more about the Fujiwara effect not really taking place because of the scenario here is one where things will not be probably that close, and even if it does take place, these systems to be weaker in nature overall because of it. And you see here our model data is it's complicated. But you see this 4 here. That's one of our models. That's why I'm concerned about Laura here. One of our models is still hinting here at a Category 4 Laura, and that model's only giving Marco as a tropical storm. So you just have to keep in mind that this could be an issue as we look toward Louisiana. It could be something a little bit stronger here. There's a bit more upside in a bad way for that strength potential as we get toward the state there of Louisiana as we look ahead later toward the week. So a lot of uncertainty here. And we're seeing here look at the areas of hurricane model data down here off the coast. You're just kind of comparing here. This is where Laura could be making landfall as we get south of Houma, for instance. And as we look here further off toward the east, this could be where Marco is making landfall. You see some of our models going even further east with it, all the way to Mobile Bay even. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. We're going to be here to get you through it. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the cone perspective real quick here of Marco. So we go ahead and get ready to leave you at that. But first, one last look at the Doppler here with these storms around in toward north central Florida. Some areas core, but we still have instability in others. We'll just have to watch. We'll just have to watch here as the evening does move along here in toward parts of north central Florida. Not really expecting severe weather, but we weren't expecting it earlier. So that's something to bear in mind as well. That pretty much does it for this Saturday. I'll be back tomorrow around the same time with another special update. Of course, we have to break in before that for some local severe weather or something that's more imminent here in the tropics that really ramps up, that we really need to talk about a change or something that's just really pertinent. Of course, we'll do so. But let's go ahead and leave you with that cone perspective of Tropical Storm Marco. Thanks so much for tuning in and have a great night. Stay safe out there.